Today we're going to be talking about parallel lines and perpendicular lines. Parallel lines are lines that never cross. They'll never intersect. Okay? Perpendicular lines absolutely cross. As a matter of fact, they cross to form a perfect corner, a perfect 90-degree angle. So we need to know that. According to our notes here, it's exactly what they say. Parallel lines have the same slope, because if they never cross, then that means that they're going in the same exact direction. And if they're going in the same direction, that must mean that they have the same steepness, which means they have the same slope. Perpendicular lines intersect to form 90-degree angles. So parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. So we need to know that. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. So what does that mean? That the sign changes and you flip the fraction. Even if it's not a fraction, you make it a fraction and you flip it. So I need you guys to take that little sheet of paper and write this down. I want you guys to write parallel on the back if you want. Parallel lines have same slope, have same m value. Okay? Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal m values. So if I tell you that your line has to be parallel to this line, if I told you your line has to be parallel to this line, then what is your slope going to be? If I tell you that your line is parallel to this one?
2/3.
2/3. Now, what if I told you your line is going to be perpendicular to this line? 3/2, but negative 3/2. Okay, remember, opposite, reciprocal. Opposite means change the sign. Reciprocal means flip the fraction. Okay, so I need you guys to understand. Parallel means same m value. Perpendicular means opposite reciprocal m values. Okay? Yeah, you need to write that down somewhere because it's already there, but if you write it, it'll help you understand it. It'll help you memorize it. Parallel has the same m value. Perpendicular has opposite reciprocal. Now, if you're like opposite reciprocal, what does opposite reciprocal mean? Then maybe you could just say change sign and flip fraction. Okay, so if you have a changed sign and a flipped fraction, then that's your perpendicular slope. Okay, now what does that mean visually? Okay guys, watch this. I want to show you what parallel and perpendicular look like. So let's graph this equation, y equals 3/2 x minus 1, that crosses the y-axis at -1 because the b value is -1. And then from that point you rise and run according to your slope. So from this point, you're going to rise 3, 1, 2, 3, run 2, 1, 2, and you're going to put a dot right there. And then you could continue to rise 3, run 2, put a dot there, rise 3, run 2, put a dot there. And backwards, the same pattern, down 3, over 2 the other way, down 3, over 2 the other way. And that is this line, okay? Let me just draw it right through those points. Now, this line right here, y equals, I want to keep it exactly the same, but instead of -1, let me put a +2. How's that? Okay. Now, what is this line going to look like since they have the same exact slope? The slope up there is 3/2, the slope right here is 3/2. They're going to be parallel lines. Okay, so if I go, it crosses at 2, and I go up 3, 1, 2, 3 over 2, up 1, 2, 3 over 2, you end up with that line, which obviously will never cross the other one because it's the same exact slope. So those are parallel. Okay. Now, what if I were to take an equation? Let me do this one in blue. Instead of y equals 3 over 2x, if I put -2 over 3, that's an opposite reciprocal slope. Now let's put -1 again. Okay, so that one, down 2 over 3, if it crosses at -1 and you go down 2 over 1, 2, 3, You end up there, and that line is going to be perfectly perpendicular to this line. It crosses it at a perfect 90-degree angle. Okay? So we need to understand that parallel lines have the same exact slope. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. This slope is an opposite reciprocal of that one, which is why when you graph them, they cross and they intersect each other perfectly at 90 degrees. Are you with me? Okay, now we're going to use this knowledge that if you have the same slope, it's parallel, or if it's parallel, you have the same slope, and if it's perpendicular, you have negative reciprocal slopes or opposite reciprocal slopes to be able to answer questions. These are the notes, but I'm going to jump right into the homework. Looking at the homework, they give you a point and they give you an equation, and they tell you that your line, you need to write an equation. Let's read the instructions here. It says write an equation in slope-intercept form. That's y equals mx plus b of the line that passes through the given point and is parallel. So right here, what does parallel mean? Same slope. Let's think that. Parallel means same slope, same m value. Okay? So they tell you, we want you to write an equation in slope-intercept form that is parallel to the given equation. Here's an equation, y equals x plus 5. Ladies and gentlemen, what is the slope of that line that they give you? What's the slope of that line? That's a y-intercept. The b value is 5. The slope is what? 1 over 1, right? Or just 1. Now, they tell you that your line is going to be parallel to this line. And that means that your line is going to have the same what? Same m, same slope. Which means that your line is also going to have the slope 1. Okay? And they tell you that your line passes through the point xy, which is 3, 2. So you need to write your equation in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, of the line that has the same slope as this one, here it is, and passes through this point. So this is from last week. You either do point slope form or you do slope-intercept form. What do you guys want to use? Slope-intercept? So we're going to plug everything into y equals mx plus b, but instead of y, what am I going to write? 2 equals, instead of m, what am I going to write? 1 times x. What's x? 3 plus b. So when we work this out, we're going to have 2 equals 3 plus b, which means that when you solve for b, when you subtract 3 and subtract 3, you're going to get negative 1 equals b. So b equals negative 1. Are you with me? Okay. So what's my answer? What's my equation? It's y equals mx plus b. Okay, so this is exactly what we did last week. But the only difference is last week, I told you here's a point and here's your m value. So I don't straight up give you the m value. I tell you that your line is going to be parallel to this one. So indirectly, I am giving you the m value. Now, it's not always going to be this easy, though. Like, let's jump around here. Let's look at number 7, for example. Number 7, they give you a point, which is an x value and a y value. And they tell you that your line is going to be parallel to this one. So what does parallel mean? Same slope. So your line is going to have the same slope as this line. The question is, what is the slope of this line? It's not 2. The thing is, you cannot see the slope, you cannot see the m value unless it's in y equals mx plus b form, or unless it's in point slope form. Point slope has the m value there. This is not in any form, right? So you need to change this first to get it in y equals mx plus b form so you could see the m. Divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3. The new equation is y equals 2/3 x minus 1. So we modified it. Why do we modify it? It's the same one as up here, but why do we modify it? So we could get it in y equals mx plus b, so we could see the m value. And if we know that our line is parallel to this line, we know that our line is going to have the same m value as this one. Yeah? Now we still need the b value. They want us to write it in y equals mx plus b form. So to get the b value out of there, you're going to plug it all into y equals mx plus b and solve for b like we did the last time, or you could use point slope form. It's totally up to you. I want to go with y equals mx plus b. So instead of y equals, what am I going to write? 4 equals, right? Y equals, that's 4 instead of y, equals mx, m is 2/3, times x, what's x? That's -3. And then, of course, we have the plus b at the very end. That's y equals mx plus b. We plugged it all into that. Instead of y, it's 4. Instead of m, it's 2/3. Instead of x, it's -3 plus b. So now let's work this out. We're going to multiply 2/3 times -3. The 3's cancel. 2 times -1 is -2 plus b equals 4. Solving this equation, b equals 6. So 6 equals b. B equals 6. Now that we know the m and now that we know the b, we could write our equation in slope-intercept form. Y equals 2/3 x plus 6. If you check the back, that's the answer that you're going to see. Okay, so last week I gave you a point, I gave you a slope. This week, same thing. But I give you a point, but I don't tell you, hey, m equals 2/3. You need to change the way this looks so you could see and identify the m value, then you know your m value. So last week I gave you the slope, I gave you a point. This week I give you a point. You find the slope by changing the way it looks so you could identify the m value. And again, it'll be like last week from here on out. The m, the point, you could plug it into point slope form or you could plug it all into slope-intercept form. Just to reiterate, the 4 went right here in place of y. The -3 went right here in place of x. And the m value of 2/3 went right in there where the m's at. Then you work it out and you'll be able to find your b value. And once you have your m and your b, you could write your equation in slope-intercept form. Cool? So the whole first half of the homework is exactly like that. I give you an xy value. I give you an equation. You need to mess with that equation till you could see the slope. Now sometimes it's really easy because like number 2 right here, if we know that our line is parallel to this one, then I could just look at the slope. What's the slope right there? -4x. Yeah, it's just -4. So your slope, because it's parallel means same slope, your slope is going to be the same, -4. And you still need the b value. How are you going to find the b value? By plugging it all into slope-intercept form, right? You could plug it all into y equals mx plus b. Or last week I also said you could plug it into point slope form if you wanted to. Okay, so if you want to use point slope form, let me show you just a review. Y minus y1 equals m parenthesis x minus x1. And I said use blank spots. Y minus the y value, but leave it blank. Minus, equals m, leave it blank, times x minus, leave it blank. And then you plug in your x value and your y value from here. The x value is -2, the y value is 5, and the m value is obviously right here, -4, so you plug in a -4 out there. That's your point slope form equation. That way you don't have to find b in this case. Right here you just plug it in and then you modify it to get y by itself. -4 times x is -4x, -4 times +2, that's a -8. And then the equal sign comes down, y minus 5 comes down. You want y by itself, you add 5 here, add 5 over there. Y equals -4x minus 3 is your final slope-intercept form equation. Your b value is -3, but you see, I used point slope form, so I didn't have to worry about finding b. Right? Now, let's say you don't like point slope form. Then you would have had to have done this. You would have had to have done y equals mx plus b, and you'd have to plug in your y value of 5 equals your m value of -4 times x, which is -2, plus b. You'd work it out. 5 equals +8 plus b. And then you could solve by subtracting 8. What are you going to get for your b value?
3.
-3. So you could have done it this way. It's one or the other. If you know your m value and you found your b value, then you could write it in y equals mx plus b form. So you don't have to do both. You just pick one or the other. If you're good with point slope form, go for it. If you like slope-intercept form, go for it. Okay. Like I said, not all of them are going to be this easy. because sometimes you cannot see the slope. Right here you could see the slope. What's the slope right there, guys? 4/3. So your slope will be 4/3. Right here you cannot see the slope. So you need to rewrite the equation in slope-intercept form so you could identify the slope, so you could know what your slope is going to be. So on the top half of this homework, it's all about the equation that they give you is parallel. On the bottom half, it says that the equation that they give you is perpendicular to the line that you want to write. Now, what does perpendicular mean? Opposite reciprocal m's. So what does that mean? Change sign and flip. Opposite reciprocal slopes. So they tell you your line crosses through the point -2, -2, and it's perpendicular to the equation that they give you. So here's the equation that they give you, and they say that it's perpendicular. So this m value is -1/3, but your m value is going to be what? Now, it's not parallel. If it were parallel, you would say that my m is the same as that m. This one's going to be change the sign, flip it, so 3/1, which is just 3. You can put positive 3/1, or you could just put 3. Either one's good. But that is your m value. And how did you get that m value? Knowing that they're perpendicular. So you had to change the sign and flip the fraction. Okay? And then, you needed the b value again. Okay, well then go ahead and use y equals mx plus b. Plug it all in. Or you could use a point slope form, whatever you want. Make sense? Do you want me to finish this or just move on to a different one? Finish it? Okay, so instead of y, what am I going to write? Instead of m, what am I going to write? 3/1 or just 3 times what's x instead of x? -2 and then plus b, right? The equation is -2 equals -6 plus b. How do I get rid of that -6? Add 6. Add 6. So b equals what? B equals 4. Now that you know the m and now that you know the b, now you could write your equation in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. What is that equation? Y equals what? 3x plus 4. That is your slope-intercept form equation. So on the top half, I told you parallel. That means same slope. On the bottom half, I'm telling you perpendicular, which means that you first need to find the slope and then change the sign and flip the fraction so you could get your slope. Let's take a look at, and like I said, all the rest of them are going to be a little more challenging because right here, this equation's in what form? The one that they give you, what form is this equation in? This is slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form. So you could clearly see the slope and the y-intercept. But look at this next one. It's not in slope-intercept form in standard. Actually, none of these equations are in slope-intercept form anymore. They're all in standard form. So like 17, for example, if you want to find your slope, your m value, which you know is perpendicular to this one, you first need to be able to identify the slope of this guy. How do you, what's the slope? You can't see it yet. You need to get y by itself first to be able to identify the m. So let's get y by itself. I'm going to subtract x. I'm going to rewrite it, -6y equals -x plus 2. And then at the very end, I'm going to divide everything by -6. So my new slope-intercept form equation is y equals positive 1/6x, because a negative divided by a negative is a positive, minus 1/3. You can't really divide 2 by 6, but you could reduce 2/6 to 1/3. Now, this equation here is the same exact thing as this equation up here. I just made it look different. The top equation was in standard, now it's in slope-intercept. Why the heck did I do that? Why did I change it from standard to slope-intercept? Because standard, you cannot see the slope, and slope-intercept, now you could actually see that the m value is 1/6. The instructions say that the equation that we want to write that passes through this point and is perpendicular to this one, that information is, or that instruction is telling me that my slope is going to be what? Flipped and the sign changed. So what's my slope going to be? -6/1, which is just -6. Does that make sense? So all of this work right here, guys, all of this work right here, Why did I do it? Just so I could find the m value. And once I found the m value, because I know it's perpendicular, I know I'm going to change it to a negative and flip the fraction, and that's how I get negative 6 over 1, which is negative 6. In other words, I don't need this anymore. I don't need this. This has nothing to do with my problem anymore. I already got what I wanted, my slope. Now I need my b value. I need my b value. Then I could write it in y equals mx plus b. So let me write down y equals mx plus b, where your y value is 4, your y value is 4, your x value is 2. So instead of y, I'm going to put 4 equals, instead of m, I'm going to put negative 6 times x, but instead of x, I put 2, and then plus b, which we're going to solve for b. So we have 4 equals negative 12 plus b, and if you add 12 and add 12, b equals 16. So b equals 16. Now that we know our m and now that we know our b, we could write our equation in slope-intercept form for number 17, and that will be y equals negative 6x plus 16. Could somebody check the back for me for number 17? Y equals negative 6x plus 16.
Yeah.
So do we get it?
Yeah.
This equation that they give you on the side, they just tell you either it's parallel or perpendicular. If it's parallel, your slope will be the same exact slope. If it's perpendicular, you're going to flip it and change the sign. Okay? That way you could have a slope and a point, and you could either go point slope form and then change to y equals mx plus b, or you could plug in everything that you know into slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, to find your missing value b. That way you could write your equation in y equals mx plus b form. I hope this helps. You guys have the answers in the back. Let's get busy.